Sowing Mycospawn. Currently a bad guy of the format. But does it become a good guy of the format if we put it into a Mono Green Stompy deck? Huh? Riddle me that. Are you rooting for me or are you rooting against me here? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Plum Wizard has asked me to play with a Mono Green Stompy deck list. I have enjoyed all of these Dino Stompy style deck lists in the past, but it's been a hot minute since I played one. So here we go. Now up front, I want to say that I've been told, oh, let's move you over here for a minute, buddy. I have been told that I should not take out the Thrun Breaker of Silences. Now, a 5-drop in Legacy is often not great, and you really need to be you really need a reason to be playing something that is that expensive even in a deck that looks like this with some mana acceleration. But it sure can't be countered, and hits like a truck, and is usually indestructible, and is kind of hard to target. So we'll see how it goes. Generally speaking, our game plan is to accelerate out big dudes that are hard to deal with. We can do this via Chrome Mox, Ancient Tomb, Ignoble Hierarch. We can Green Sun for Dryad Arbor, and then later on in the game, Green Sun will turn into powerful threats, such as Shifting Ceratops, which can get a whole bunch of keywords, while also being protection from blue, so it can't get blocked by other large creatures like Murktide Regent. And we could just play a pile of Endurances. Something that a lot of decks do in post-sideboard games versus decks like Delver is just play 4 Endurances, nuke their graveyard, shrink their creatures, keep them from casting Murktide Regent, and that becomes a reasonable plan. The only thing that I have done to the main deck here is the original deck list had 4 copies of Once Upon a Time, which I have replaced with Elvish Spirit Guide. I watched my conclusion of the last time I played a deck that looked like this one, and the first words out of my mouth were, I did not like how Once Upon a Time felt in this deck list. And that was a 21 creature deck list, which this also was before the Spirit Guides went in there, and that was my cue that, like, okay, maybe I should not be doing this, even though it looks like it should be good. We have limited removal in the main deck. We do have an MDFC that can let us fight creatures while potentially also putting a little bit more damage out there, but generally speaking, we're looking to play something big fast, maybe obliterate our opponent's lands, and we'll get a feel for whether or not trying to play Wasteland in a Stompy deck like this is a little bit too greedy. A lot of times these decks will have both Ancient Tomb and City of Traders, and we only have one of those because we are looking to do more mid-rangey stuff, and we won't always be ramping something out as quickly as possible. As far as the sideboard goes, I rebuilt it a little bit. I wanted to have some options other than Dismember, or when something like an Atraxa slips into play, or an Archon of Cruelty. I wanted to have at least a couple of theoretical outs to that, so we're going to run a split of Run Afoul and Dismember, rather than just running something like 4 Dismembers. We have a couple of Silver Bullets here, as well as Carpet of Flowers, in the event that we're playing against a blue deck. I have added Leyline of the Void to this sideboard, which might feel a little weird when I'm also running Endurance. But graveyard decks are really, really good in Legacy right now. And a problem that can come up with this deck is that if you have a Trinisphere in play, your Endurance, which normally is free, costs 3. So I wanted to have another thing that I could put into play at the beginning of the game to just say, like, okay, I can buy time versus combo until I can get a Trinisphere online. I can start wastelanding my opponent. I can Green Sun for Collector Oof. I wanted to have a solid path forward, and I thought Leyline of the Void was a good way to do that. I don't think I can run something like Grafdigger's Cage due to the negative synergy with Green Sun. And honestly, I consider just playing something like a Tormod's Crypt, or alternatively some things like Mindbreak Trap, or Thorn of Amethyst, or even Damping Sphere. But I settled on just wanting a Leyline. In terms of sideboarding here, with the way that I have constructed the sideboard, we may occasionally end up leaving one Trinisphere in if we're paired against some sort of fair creature deck that's non-blue. Like, we can board in 3 Dismembers, but we might end up with kind of one awkward Trinisphere if none of these other cards end up being good. But I think we'll probably be able to board out cards that are bad in most cases. So with that being said, let's see how Plum Wizard's Mean Green Machine ends up running. Folks, if you need any cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Aether Drift will be out soon, and if you need to pre-order any cards, maybe even pick up some cards on site at a major event, promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order, and if you're getting it shipped to you, that's always free. So, let's battle. Okay, that's supposed to look like that? Is that what that looked like over here? During the deck tech? No, it is not. Okay. Anyway, I don't think my hand is a keep here. Let's go ahead and mulligan this one. Yeah, weird visual display bug on that. We are roughly 24 hours after the last Magic Online update, and there appears to be a little bit of clunkiness in rolling out these new cards, which generally speaking look really, really good. I don't think I get to keep this. Ugh. Bruh. Is this 5? This is 5. Okay. Okay. I don't like it. I don't think it is good. I get rid of expensive stuff here. And my game plan is pretty sad. It is hope to Wasteland my opponent into Oblivion after showing them Wasteland. But I think I'm on so few cards at this point that going to 4, even on the play, does not put me in a good spot. Okay. So you're telling me there's a chance. I am almost certainly going to just Wasteland that land. I don't have Collector Oof in game 1. I will in post-sideboard games. Okay, yes. So, nuke that. What is the best thing that I can Green Sun for in this matchup? I'm going to want 5 mana, probably. I think I'm going to Green Sun for 1 and pick up an Ignoble Hierarch. I could Malevolent Rumble. If Malevolent Rumble misses a land, though, it's real bad. Okay. Yeah. We like it. I mean, we don't like it, but there's a non-zero chance that I could win this game. My opponent's at 19. Any land drop means that I can start chaining together these Malevolent Rumbles and hopefully make up some lost time. The scariest thing that can happen over the next 2 turn cycles is Urza's Saga into Planar Nexus. That's what we do not want to see, because then my opponent has 4 mana and gets out ahead of all of the bullshit that I am doing. So I think I'm going to high roll and take Sowing Mycospawn. I have 3 mana towards it. I can cast another Malevolent Rumble if I miss, but if on my next turn, I hit another land and can Sowing Mycospawn, I can break up Urza's Tower and Planar Nexus, either before it happens or if it happens. 1 ring Voltaic Key. Pretty good if you haven't seen that in action before. Alright, we did high roll. That's fantastic. So we will go ahead and Sowing Mycospawn, pick up Wasteland number 3. I think I am going after the Urza's Tower here, because the Urza's Tower has synergy with Urza's Workshop. And then we just kind of see how bad this gets. There's a draw 2. There's a Saga. Battle. We're hoping to avoid the Grim Monolith type things that can go wild with Voltaic Key here. That's also pretty scary, honestly. Our opponent is likely to just go a little bit faster than what I am capable of doing. I am ultimately happy with our mulligan decision. Like, we are playing Magic. Damn. 1 more persistent mana source and I could do it again. This is not great, though. So I will take Trinisphere. I will take Trinisphere. That's a thing to do next turn. I could push 1 more point of damage this turn, but the individual points of damage don't really matter a lot. My opponent's at 14, but now probably has a very disgusting 1 ring Voltaic Key Glaring Fleshraker turn. Like, I fully expect that I will be dead or effectively dead in the next 2 minutes. Ancient Tomb. That's where I thought that was going, and I hate it. Alright, so now Grim Monolith Voltaic Key nonsense can happen, in addition to 1 ring Voltaic Key nonsense. Oh god. Yeah, I imagine with 1 on tap on Grim Monolith and 1 on tap on the 1 ring, I'm already dead. From 5, we can concede here, like my opponent very clearly has it. We played a real game for a mulligan to 5. That was fine. Honestly, we drew a little hot. Force of Vigor is great here. Collector Oof is great here. Dismember is playable, although I don't know that I am going to have the slots to actually play that. Endurance is not really necessary for this matchup. I will probably turn that into a couple of Collector Oofs and a couple Force of Vigors. Chronosphere is something strong to do. It loses a lot of its oomph on the draw, though. Thrun is expensive. I think I'm going to let that go. And then there's Dismember. I am comfortable doing that. I do not think I can cut any more threats. I just don't think that makes sense here. I do need to end the game somehow after I buy some time, and I've cut 5-6 threats from the deck while adding in only Collector Oofs. I don't know that I get to do more than that. This is totally fine and great versus a fair deck. Just Ancient Tomb, Chrome Box, Hierarch, Pitch Spirit Guide, Ceratops. If I put this under, I attack for 7 and then 14. This is not good enough for my opponent's best hands. I don't know that I beat my opponent's best hands anyway. This is good enough to beat their mediocre hands. I don't know, maybe it is supposed to be this under there. And I keep this as an out to Glaring Flushraker. Ancient Doom, Chromox, Imprint, and do the Dinosaur. We've got Urza's Tower. And pass. Trinisphere is a great draw. Okay. We're going to do this. It'll let us push an extra damage. And I can drop the Trinisphere and send in with my Dinosaur. Opponent is at 14 as of turn 2 with Trinisphere in play. Urza's Tower into Planar Nexus is a pain in the butt. That lets my opponent cast something through a Trinisphere. It is Glaring Fleshraker, and I might be punished for trying to get around my own ignoble Hierarch here. I am not ever casting multiple spells here, so I will Malevolent Rumble. These cards are not great. Spirit Guide is technically a castable threat, so I'm going to take that over Yavimaya. It just does not feel good. Opponent will take 6 here, and is at 8. A second Glaring Fleshraker is very scary. I have actually dealt a good amount of damage to myself with my Ancient Tomb and Tangle Span Bridge works. I'm just going to save 2 life here. I shouldn't need this spawn in most cases. A Green Sun. So I can do a Green Sun for 3 or 4. Shifting Ceratops with haste. Can I do that? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Haste. Attack in for 10. That is probably fine. Margins are a little tight on this. The Ceratops, a green, get haste, go to punchies, send in. My opponent's going to take 5 here and will be dead to trample next turn. They, in theory, get 1 spell, but some things they have produce extra mana in a way that's very bad for me, and I might just die. That is a Grim Monolith. That puts me to 1, and then the 2 Glaring Fleshrakers can just attack. I had more agency in this game. I can't just say, like, this loss was outside of my control. I could have held this card. I could have taken Yavimaya over Spirit Guide, and then I saved 2 life. There were other decisions that I could make, but my opponent basically ignored Trinisphere this game, which is super sad. With a Kozilek's command there, we are very dead. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I could say all sorts of great things about them, but I'm just going to point to this number. I have 488 deck lists stored on this site. That should give you a feel for how I feel about this website. And if you were to go to my profile, you could see all the deck lists that I'm messing around with, including my EDH decks, and you can even see some of the deck lists I record with before they hit the channel. Ooh. This looks like it'll probably be fine. I don't know exactly where it's going to go. Opponent's doing unfair things over there. Yes. 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 Literally the exact draw that I wanted there. We get to take out a soul land. I also probably play Ignoble Hierarch this turn. Notably here, just in case you're not super familiar with Chromox, it is non-artifact, non-land, so I can't imprint Dryad Arbor under it. I think I am going to imprint the most expensive card here. I am really not sure about that. Endurance can be attacking as a 4-power creature. I think I just want to have the possibility of top decking and being able to play a 4 or 5 drop. All right, what are we doing here? Are we doing one ring stuff? No, we are doing this. So, my opponent cascades. They are going to cascade into Tybalt's Trickery and have that counter their Throes of Chaos. After that happens, Tybalt's Trickery is going to hit another spell that has Cascade, and cascade into another Tybalt's Trickery, which has now hit an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, and there is also a Call Forth the Tempest. Real bad for me. Oh no, sorry, that is Emrakul doing the shuffle thing. My bad. Still very bad here. So this Cascade chain is going to continue. It's now broken. My opponent is out of Tybalt's Trickeries, but now Creative Technique starts. We'll see if my opponent is going to demonstrate that. They do. So I will get a thing. I will cast a Shifting Ceratops, but my opponent is just going to keep cascading and cascading and cascading, and when this ultimately resolves, my stuff's gonna die. There is a Trumpeting Carnosaur. This is now a Discover 5, leading my opponent into a new Violent Outburst, which isn't actually really going to do anything. I will be floating a mana here. My creatures are very dead. And now a Maelstrom Wanderer is happening. I think there's enough power in play and enough Cascade things here that I am now comfortable conceding. This deck does have a real fizzle chance, but I do not think we are there anymore. In bad news, I really don't have many things that interact with this. The ley lines don't matter, the Force of Vigors don't matter, the Dismembers don't really matter. The Run of Fowls aren't exciting. So we're kind of on Trinispheres and Wastelands and Sowing Mycospawns is the thing in my deck that are relevant, which feels pretty bad. This is where we would like to have the Thorn of Amethyst Damping Sphere style cards. And my opponent's version specifically, that has the Throes of Chaos and Tybalt's Trickery version, that's often for post-sideboard games as a way to go faster when you need to. If we are playing against the version of the deck that is just going to be casting 6 drops more consistently, I think we have a better chance at beating that. But I think we're just SOL in this matchup. So I have cards. I don't know that this is worth keeping. I have some reasonable Green Sun lines. I can do Malevolent Rumble things. I just think this is going to be a little clunky overall with only the single land. So, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Ignoble Hierarch, Wasteland a first thing. This is going to be fine. I think I am getting rid of Yavimaya here. Actually, do I need to imprint with Chrome Mox if I'm not casting anything on turn 1? I don't, right? So just turn 1, Yavimaya, Ignoble Hierarch. Turn 2, 4 mana, cast a thing. Yeah, that's fine. I'll put back Chrome Mox. Alright, my opponent is down to 5 cards. I don't think that means a lot, though. They actually need very few cards to theoretically defeat me. Alright, so we have a tapped land here. We have a billion Sowing Mycospawns. We've got that going for us. So, we will grab a Wasteland. We will Wasteland the land. Already made my land drop, so we're good to go. We have a Crystal Vein and another Sowing Mycospawn, which is honestly kind of funny. So we're going to send in for 4 damage here. Put my opponent to 16. We'll go ahead and cast a Sowing Mycospawn. I will pick up a Wasteland with that. I will Wasteland my opponent's land. I will play a new Wasteland. Basic Mountain. That can buy my opponent a little time here. Ooh, what does that do? So if I tap Wasteland, I have X equals 4. But I don't have an extra green mana to give little buddy here haste. Okay. Send in for 6. Opponent's at 10. I will put lethal on board. X equals 4. Shifting Ceratops. Let's see if we're dead. I don't think we are. Yeah, we are not. Again, don't have much agency here in sideboarding. Well, I mean, this is turn 2 Trinisphere. That's real good. The only thing better than this is turn 1 Trinisphere. I have some Wasteland hands that can buy time to try to get to a Trinisphere. I think I would keep this on a 6, but not on a 7. A Collector Oof not being a good silver bullet here is rough. It just kind of means that my deck does not line up well versus this specific combo deck. So I can keep 5 of these. This is turn 2 Sowing Mycospawn, which is worse than turn 2 Trinisphere. But I could turn 1 Malevolent Rumble. I could go Yavimaya Spirit Guide, Malevolent Rumble, and have looks at Trinisphere. And if that doesn't work, I Sowing Mycospawn. That's fine. I think on 5 I will accept that. I still think I am very, very likely to lose here. So, land drop, Malevolent Rumble. I will just grab a Wasteland. That is fine. And we'll see if we're dead. That is a tapped land. Not dead? Not dead. So, I will go ahead and Sowing Mycospawn here. Pick up another Wasteland. And I believe that I attacked the red mana here, rather than the Ancient Tomb. My opponent played Ancient Tomb out first, so that if something would get Wastelanded, it was that and not the red source. I think I'm going to try to bottleneck colored mana here, although I will just Wasteland Ancient Tomb in a lot of cases on my next turn. Boseiju. In that case, Ancient Tomb is probably better than Boseiju. Boseiju works towards Violent Outburst specifically. I think I am going to cast this paying life here to leave some mana floating and see what happens off of this, though, before I make any decisions. It's just more Wasteland, though. Love that for me. In that case, raw mana amount is probably fine for this decision. 2 colorless mana doesn't do anything, so we will go ahead and just punch on in. All right. So next turn I Wasteland while also playing Shifting Ceratops, and we will take out that Needle for sure. So, Wasteland, blow up Needle. Again, Chromox does not let you imprint Dryad Arbor. We will bam. Wait, I don't have a bonus green for this. So I could do green, green, 1. Yeah, I'm actually short of that. Oops. I'll hit for 3. And we'll just kind of see how long we can hold back stuff here. So good at Magic. Send in for 3. Opponent's at 11. I will drop Dryad Arbor. So next turn, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 towards Shifting Ceratops. I'm not giving Shifting Ceratops haste next turn. So I think I can just do green like this and drop Trinisphere this way. There are Boseijus in this deck that can answer Trinisphere, but hopefully this just buys me enough time to get there. If I draw an untapped green land, I can hit in with haste and have my opponent on a 2-turn clock. Actually, they're on a 2-turn clock anyway, just 8+3. Oh, that's a Trumpeting Carnosaur to off of discarding to deal 3 damage to my creature. That's perfectly fine and reasonable. I would like to take the initiative here. So this basic land that I'm going to get here is going to allow me to Shifting Ceratops with haste next turn. Notably, I have dealt a gajillion damage to myself. Tapped land is fine. We will go ahead and forge here. Put the counters here. Run. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Run. Or sorry, Shifting Ceratops. Not run. With haste. Go to punchies. Send in for 10. Opponent is at 1. They are dead to trap on my turn, so they have to combo off through Trinisphere this turn, which feels tough. That's 2 mana for Boseiju, followed by, it would have to be like a 3 mana Cascade card while getting a little bit lucky. We mulliganed aggressively, we got rewarded there, but I also think we got a little lucky to win that one. I think that matchup is probably very bad for us on average. Weird that Dryad Arbor Chromox keeps coming up. I don't think I like this hand. It's really, really reliant on Shifting Ceratops being good. So I can do something like turn 1 Wasteland, Chromox, imprint something, Malevolent Rumble, turn 2 Shifting Ceratops. So that would be land, land, green. We need another green land or to use Spirit Guide on turn 2. I think this is sketchy, but I kind of want to see how it plays out. possible I can play a slower Wasteland-oriented game. Like, I think this is like a perfectly reasonable 6-card hand that has a Dryad Arbor to boot. We are most scared of a threat coming down on turn 1, which didn't happen, but we could end up with Entomb happening immediately. So let's Chrome Mox. I believe we will imprint one Malevolent Rumble to cast another Malevolent Rumble. So I have 4 mana with Spirit Guide. If I take another Spirit Guide, I have Shifting Ceratops with haste. That seems real. And we'll see where this goes. We did not get an opportunity to look at an Endurance there, which is a card that I might have just snapped off had it appeared with Malevolent Rumble. There is a green land. I think I will go ahead and play that. So, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This can't be countered, so it's happening. We'll go haste with this ability, and then get in there. One of the things that I was considering during this turn cycle was that I could use an Elvish Spirit Guide to keep a Wasteland available. I think there's a decent number of timelines, though, where my opponent ends up just getting Swamp Island with these, and using the extra resource to do so might just make it harder for me to resolve a future 4-drop. We have a secondary fetch. It is a Volcanic Island. Sheoldred's Edict is rough. Alright, I mean, we've made our land drop. That's all we've got for now. And now we're reliant on the top of our deck. We do have a bunch of things like Green Sun and Malevolent Rumble to help smooth out our draws. Our opponent plays another non-basic land. We could double Wasteland, but we unfortunately don't get quite that lucky. Culligan's Command, taking out my Mox. I do not love it. I am going to get rid of Dryad Arbor. That card is just pretty sketchy here. My opponent is probably just playing too much removal for that card to be safe. Endurance is not perfect, but it sure is the card that I currently have access to. I will probably be casting that on my opponent's end step. Underground Sea. Wow, I got super punished for waiting. That's embarrassing. Yeah. Now this Endurance is not doing me a lot of good. I think I'm going to hold it and save the Spirit Guide, see if we can do something more impressive. Alright, well, let's see if we can work towards something that beats Murktide Regent. The Fight card? Can't even take that, actually. We're taking Forest. It just does not feel good. I now have Endurance in a pinch if I really need it for some reason. I can't really think of why right now. I'm going to take 5. And again, I think I'm holding this Spirit Guide. I do have some things like Thrun that are more expensive. And again, the Endurance blocking right now is not the most relevant. So we're mostly on Shifting Ceratops, give it reach every turn as the primary out. I need to be able to Green Sun for that. Yes, Ignoble Hierarch being played out helps with that. I could attack with a 1/2 spawn token there. I don't think I want to jeopardize the spawn token, though, as silly as that sounds. Sure. That probably means that I need to cast Endurance now. Uh-huh. With this -2 ability on the stack, I will cast Endurance. I really wanted to ambush my opponent's creature in combat, but now I think I just need to resolve this. Well, shit. Now my opponent just has me on a 2-turn clock, just 8-16. Alright, it's just a Ponder. It could be worse, but I think I'm very, very unlikely to win from here. Rhinosphere certainly is not doing it. I will concede here. So, those Run-a-Fowls that I put into the deck are looking good now. These Carpet of Flowers are looking good. My Chrome Mox gets worse versus Culligan's Command. My Trinisphere gets worse versus Culligan's Command. Trinisphere is good versus things like Snapcaster Mage that my opponent could be playing. I don't think I want Leyline. I don't think I want Dismember. One of the cleanest things that I could do here is this swap. This makes me slightly less prisony and just has me throwing threats at my opponent and hoping that I exhaust their resources. If I expect that the game is going to go long, I could also go down on Chrome Mox or Ignoble Hierarch as well, or turn a couple Ignoble Hierarchs into Carpet of Flowers. The thing about Carpet of Flowers is that it's a high variance card. Sometimes that will be a big mana boost, and sometimes that is just going to be 1 mana because my opponent does something like Mountain Swamp Island. I think I am going to do this. I'm not 100% sure that it is correct. The fact that my opponent can play this game on basics and incidentally mess with my Sowing Mycospawn is a bit of a problem for me. This has 3, kind of 4 initial mana. I can play Ignoble Hierarch off of this land into Shifting Ceratops on turn 2, but it costs me a ton of my resources in a way that I'm not actually the most thrilled about. I think I'm actually going to mulligan this one and just try to find something that is more stable. Boseiju, Ignoble Hierarch, Ancient Tomb, Sowing Mycospawn, Secondary Wasteland. This is fine. This Dryad Arbor has been really bad. I have drawn it so many times, and it has felt bad every time. It is what makes Green Sun into a 1-mana mana acceleration card, so I'm not saying that it is wrong, but my experience so far in this league has me with an anti-tree stance. So, not a lot of agency at the beginning of the game here. My hand is also not threat dense. I really want threat dense hands versus control, and we have a single threat. And the threat isn't even that good if my opponent is playing non-basics. Sorry, is playing basics. Let's see what happens here. It's great for us if this is something like an Underground Sea, so our opponent can ponder, and it's very bad if they just pick up a land. So I'm not going to show Wasteland immediately in hopes of hiding that information. Thrun is solid. I am not unhappy with that. That is my secondary threat that I'm looking for. There's another Bloodstained Mire. This can get basic swamp, but it does not. That's a Sheoldred's Edict, so I lose my creature, but I can just immediately get Sowing Mycospawn value, so I think I am overall okay with this. This is now a little weird, because I might want to use Sowing Mycospawn to get another green source, so that I can actually cast the Thrun. Oh, that's weird. I think it's correct to do this and just wait another draw step to see what happens. I think I can count on one hand the number of times that I've had a line that looks like that one, where when you can Sowing Mycospawn for Wasteland, you just simply choose not to. That's another Wastelandable land. Okay, well, you know, if I'm just going to keep drawing them, so opponent doesn't have blue mana available for a Stifle effect, I will pick up a Wasteland. This is going to resolve. I will Wasteland this Badlands on my opponent's upkeep. I don't want to Wasteland it now for, like, Fatal Push reasons. So we'll hit it here. No floated mana. Anyway, if you're wondering why people don't want to play Control in the current metagame, it's this. Oh, now we just get to fucking kick it? Good God. Send in for 3. 15. 6 mana. So we will exile that mountain, and then I can search for my next green source. I think I'm just going to pick a Yavimaya since I have double Ancient Tomb. Anyway, do you think my opponent is having fun? Don't answer that. We all know. We know. Like, they have even built their deck in a way where they can play on some number of basics pretty consistently. And then that's just what happens. So in evaluating Carpet of Flowers, that's the sort of game that I'm talking about, where Carpet of Flowers is not necessarily always going to be a good mana producer. So it's possible I'm wrong about Carpet, and I should just play a couple of Trinispheres over Carpets. The Carpets just help me get to 6 mana for kicking Sowing Mycospawn, which is such a huge fucking deal. I could see it breaking either way on that one. Alright, what does this do? So, turn 1, Forest, Ignoble Hierarch. Or maybe Forest, Green Sun. Turn 2, I can cast a Shifting Ceratops. This hand is unexciting. I think this hand is probably fine. I think it is just improved so much by mana, which is roughly half my deck, that I just keep it. We actually could see a Green Sun for Dryad Arbor this game. It's not crazy for that to happen. Badlands. Well, you're in luck. I'm not on the Wasteland hand. Never mind, I'm on the Wasteland hand. Basic. I think this can now be Green Sun for Dryad Arbor. Pick up Dryad Arbor. Do I Chrome Mox a Hierarch to play another Hierarch? Then if one of these gets answered, I have 1, 2, 3 mana always next turn. If one of these lives, 1, 2, 3, 4 mana always next turn. Yeah, I think I'm into that. Let's do that. And that. And it's possible that I eat back-to-back removal spells here, like a Lightning Bolt into a Fatal Push or something like that. And if that happens, I think that's fine. But the sooner I cast this Sowing Mycospawn, the better. And I think I have the highest chance of making this work if I go for this line. I can also just top deck a land here and cast Sowing Mycospawn. Ooh. I lose the Sowing Mycospawn. Not overly surprising. Will my opponent also take out Hierarch? No. Malevolent Rumble is perfectly fine. I will not be casting that this turn, but it is a fine card. This is uncounterable, but another Fatal Push or something could take it out. Opponent goes for Scalding Tarn, getting a basic. We've got a Ponder. Basically, things that don't address my Shifting Ceratops are a net positive for me right now. An Edict doesn't do it, a Lightning Bolt doesn't do it, a Fatal Push does it, a Snapcaster Mage does it. That was a Ponder Shuffle. Are we going to miss land drop 3? No, we are not. That is a Sheoldred's Edict. I will be sacrificing Ignoble Hierarch. Thank you very much. Ooh, that's real good. I'm always doing that. Always, always, always. Send in for 5. Opponent's at 12. My Eldrazi Spawn token that I'm about to make off of this is not actually going to protect Shifting Ceratops from another Edict effect. So I am on 3 mana, counting the Spawn token. I'm going to take one of the 4 drops. I think I'm going to take the uncounterable one. I could... No, I can't top deck a Soul Land. I have 5 mana, but I don't have green, green, green. That is a Brainstorm. Again, every mana that is spent not addressing Shifting Ceratops, huge plus for me. Brainstorm fetch Fatal Push is pretty scary, though. Not fetch. A Sheoldred's Edict could still do it here. It is another Sheoldred's Edict. Sheoldred's Edict not being protected by tokens is so good. Massive upgrade over most edicts that came before it. Chrome Mox is no good here. My opponent now gets a turn of Breathing Room, which is not something that I wanted to give them. Like, this is a turn where they could cast something like a Murktide Regent, for example. Yeah, no. Hate that. Well, my opponent could Force of Will this if they have Force of Will. I would Spirit Guide if that happens, which is very funny. But the problem here is that this lifelinks, and I'm not very good at getting rid of it. I can draw the MDFC fight land, but I'll be a mana short of using it. I think that creature ends up stabilizing the board, and notably, even if I was playing something like Dismember, it's just out of Dismember range right now. I have protection from the wrong color. I need protection from black. Alright, there's another land, no creature milled, another Shifting Ceratops. That's really not doing it for me. Yeah, I don't really conceptually see the out here. This is part of the reason why white is so good in Legacy right now. Or, well, white removal is so good in Legacy. Just being able to cleanly say no to everything with all of your removal spells is a really big deal. My opponent now gets Bowmasters back as a chump blocker. My opponent has Price of Progress. Rough. I think at this point I am willing to concede. I think this creature just goes all the way from here. GG's. Okay, I don't think I like keeping just turn 2 Trinisphere in the dark with no green mana. So I think I'm going to mulligan this one. Then, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, something. Spirit Guide, turn 1, Sowing Mycospawn. Seems fine. I think I'm going to keep Malevolent Rumble over Endurance. Misty Rainforest from our opponent. They are from Italy. Delver of Secrets, you've got it. So I can blow up my opponent's land. I might end up fighting that Delver with a Sowing Mycospawn. Run? Alright, let's figure this out. Ancient Tomb. Chrome Mox. I'm going to imprint Malevolent Rumble. I will use the Spirit Guide. My opponent wants to daze. I'm going to get Wasteland. Let's see if Sowing Mycospawn resolves. It does. I think I will go ahead and Wasteland the Volcanic Island. It's possible that I should just, like, ignore my opponent's mana and just try to cast my big dumb cards. So opponent can now stack their Bauble triggers in a way that is favorable for the Delver. So their top card was not an instant or sorcery, so now they get a fresh look with Delver. And that does result in a flip. There is a daze that's super inconvenient for me because I was planning on using this as a spell to get rid of that Delver. So not a fan of that. Oh gosh, we're so dead. The daze is not live. I think I am now working towards larger mana amounts, which is just sad. But I think that's where we're at. I think there is a very good chance that I just get Delvered here. That my opponent gets a Daze and just beats me down with this Delver. Like, sometimes I don't even get to cast this Thrun. I'm already at 12. An opponent does have an island to support Daze. Don't play more threats. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, cool. Yeah, having a DRC or something come down right there would be really scary for me. And another Bobble. Opponent gets to know what my next draw is. They take their redraw. Fuck this Daze, though. Alright. So the plan is don't Wasteland, draw another land, cast Endurance around Daze, lose to Force of Will. That's the game that I'm carving out as of right now. Down to 9. No. That's so rough. What if they don't Wasteland me? Yeah. Fuck. Alright. We're gonna eat the Daze here. And then maybe hope that my next 2 draws are land plus second Endurance. Malevolent Rumble. Alright. I thought about that draw specifically. I could have not cast the Endurance, and my Malevolent Rumble that I could potentially draw gets dazed instead, giving me a chance to maybe Endurance. But I don't have green working towards that with current resources. The Volk comes back. And there's another green. Send in. I'm also dead to Lightning Bolt to face. Just throwing that out there. I think I am not Wastelanding ever. So I'm going to play this out in a way that lets me play a 1-drop if I draw one here. We can also work towards, I guess, Shifting Ceratops with Reach if I have green. I mean, yeah. It needs another card off the top. But yeah. Don't bolt me. Okay, not bolt. Fantastic. Notably, we're dead to a lot of stuff here. Like, another Delver, a DRC, land Murktide. Like, there's so many problems. My opponent essentially has to have bricks. I will be at 3. I guess we could also just try to kill my opponent. Shifting Ceratops with haste. Also a thing. We're already dead to Lightning Bolt. Okay, there is black mana in there. That is very important information. We did not get confirmation of that before this. So Bowmaster should be on my radar. Fatal Push should be on my radar. What was that? Is that a Molten Collapse? That was a Molten Collapse. So if I have the 4th mana, I can cast one of these, but not finish my opponent off. Rats? I mean, we got real close on this one, but we could not get over the edge. GG. So now we have Dismembers, probably Run Afoul, Carpet of Flowers. We can think about Leyline. I don't think I'm going to play it, but we can think about it. I'm going to board my Trinispheres out. I'm not the biggest fan of those versus Delver, despite the fact that Trinisphere does stuff. The issue is that once your opponent puts a threat in play, the Trinisphere doesn't matter because they just kill you with the threat. That has been my experience playing Trinisphere versus Delver. The 5-drop is going to be hard if we are Wastelanding each other. I think despite the fact that this is uncounterable, this probably goes. Under Mountain Adventure is also a little rough. The initiative is risky in this matchup. I might keep 1 Thrun. I think I like this. We've got Endurance to help keep the graveyard in check, so I don't think we need to be thinking about Leyline. We've still got 22 creatures here. This seems fine. All right, we have Dismember, we have Dryad Arbor, I have a Wasteland, I have some bonus mana. This is totally fine. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with the Dryad Arbor here. I could try to save this for later in the game and try to turn this into an Endurance in the mid-game or something. I don't really think that makes a lot of sense here. We've got a Fetch and a Delver of Secrets. I've got a few different ways that I can address that, but I don't think I need to address it immediately. I think I am just going to use my own mana efficiently here and just drop the Shifting Ceratops and make my opponent deal with that. It's not unanswerable, but it dodges the red removal, and opponent's not anywhere near Delirium for Unholy Heat. And then I can look at Dismembering Delver. If I stabilize the board, we can start thinking about Wastelanding our opponent. Not the most interested in that in the short term, but it's probably fine. All right, we've got a Lightning Bolt taking out Dryad Arbor. A really weird turn. Holy shit, this turn is hard. So I can Wasteland my opponent to better play around Daze. I can Dismember Delver off Wasteland and then play Ignoble Hierarch. I can consider leaving back Shifting Ceratops defensively if Dismember gets Force of Willed. I can choose whether or not I am dealing 3 damage with this or trying to hold this back. I think I am not Wastelanding my opponent, so I think I'm going to try it this way. I think it's just too good to work towards this. Okay, that does work, in which case I'm fine playing this tapped and throwing out Ignoble Hierarch, so I can attack for 6 rather than 5. That worked out very well for me. There's other timelines where I can make a Wasteland happen this turn. But again, I'm so close to Thrun as of right now. I think I just want to be able to do that. A Wasteland. Ooh, opponent does not want to be Wastelanded. Opponent also probably does not want to be Enduranced. We're going to send in for 6 here. Opponent goes to 7. And honestly, I think I just Endurance despite the fact that it is Dazeable right now. I think potentially stopping a Murktide Regent is really good. If this gets dazed, that also just stops Murktide Regent. We got a Brazen Borrower and a Force of Will for our trouble. And if opponent plays Murktide Regent, actually, I do just have 6 damage with Exalted here. So Murktide does not stabilize the board. Molten Collapse, maybe? Yeah, Molten Collapse kills my dinosaur. 1 Thrun hit will do my opponent in. And I probably get to Thrun next turn. Yeah, I'll take a Wasteland here. I don't think I Wasteland. I think I just attack for 1. And then have Thrun next turn. I guess I should not yield through this turn. I could respond to a Wasteland or something. Alright, so there is the Murktide Regent. Now, this is a 7/7 as of right now. Nice. So Thrun cannot be countered. Thrun is in play. This is a 5/5. It is a 6/6 on attack. During my turn, it has Indestructible, so it actually works really, really well with these fight lands. So on my next turn, I can cast Bridgeworks Battle, fight and kill Murktide Regent, and then swing in for lethal. Every point of life precious for my opponent here. All right, they are holding Murktide Regent back. I'm going to play this as a land. I'm already playing this spell around Daze. I'm not expecting Spell Pierce. I can't play around Force of Negation. Target creature I control. Target Murktide Regent. 1, 2, 3. Are we trolling? We're trolling. I think I just attack. I can, like, potentially Wasteland in a minute. I don't think it changes anything. Get there? Get there. We are going to another game, though. Am I undervaluing Thrun? The Indestructible is kind of a big deal. It's just so slow. Maybe that's fine? What if I did like this? Not like Wastelanding my opponent is the best. A lot of times these might just be things that are stabilizing my mana. I could go down 1 Malevolent Rumble. I don't know. Okay, so we have 2 Sowing Mycospawns. I have 3 initial mana. 1 of it is temporary. I have okay cards. I really would just like more lands here. Or a Dismember. Oh yeah, this I like. What goes back? Probably 1 drop mana accelerator. So, Carpet seems good as my first play here. My opponent can stare at me with fetch lands, but if that is happening, that is reasonable for me. I am secretly playing this around Daze if my opponent dazes. The most disastrous thing is actually like this getting countered and then this getting Wastelanded. That's super spooky for me. That is a Daze. I will pay. Nice. So now opponent does not have that land anymore, so like I lose a little bit of Carpet of Flowers value in that capacity, but now there is tension for the rest of my game on my opponent's mana base. And I have 2 very, very good cards here. Yeah, this is not that big of a deal in the short to medium term. We will just pass the turn. Ah, you're in for a fight. Opponent is not going to attack my Ancient Tomb here. Okay, they're going to do it in the upkeep. That's reasonable. Run Afoul is a great card. I don't have any more lands, so I am just chilling here. Again, every land that my opponent plays just ends up turning on my cards. So they can't play a threat without giving me mana. And I technically should not have said yes to that. Notably, my deck is 50% mana. I will top deck out of this relatively quickly on average. Underground Sea and Ponder. Then Misty. And we're not playing a threat. I will say yes. I will make green mana. I think I'm into that just being green sun for Dryad Arbor. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it's Ignoble Hierarch. This scales up to be larger sometimes. This card becomes dead if I draw Dryad Arbor. Alright. I think I just have enough other stuff in this hand where I'm fine with this. There is a Daze, which is fine. I could blind Endurance the Graveyard in an attempt to keep a Murktide Regent out of play. I have something that theoretically beats Murktide Regent in hand, though, so I don't think I need to do that. Yeah, so my opponent is just playing fetch lands. They're not putting a threat into play. I'll just be passing the turn here. Next turn, if I don't draw a land, I will potentially just Endurance. I don't think I'm willing to fire it off here. It's pretty close, though. It really does feel like my opponent is working towards Murktide Regent. I am going to do this. This is probably better done in upkeep before my opponent has another. I guess there's hardcast days. This might be better done in my opponent's upkeep. Okay, that is Force of Will. Taking that Force of Will means my run afoul has a better chance of actually resolving. So I am down with this. I will probably get at least 2 mana out of Carpet of Flowers on my next turn. So that is an 8/8 Murktide Regent, which hopefully Run Afoul will answer. Dismember doesn't currently do it. That Endurance is not great as of right now. We're making green mana. We are going to Run Afoul. We're playing around Daze. Opponent could have another Force of Will. Hot damn, we're in there. This is probably going to get Lightning Bolted then. I don't think I am Endurancing a graveyard that looks like that. There's no instants and sorceries in there. We can dismember a Murktide Regent that is played as of right now. That is fine. I dismember that. That is also fine. Sure. Yes. Make green. I'm going to do this one first. I'll go down to 16 to do this and pay 1 of my green mana. And then we will go ahead and play the Ignoble Hierarch, which has resolved. And next turn I get to start playing some number of these cards. Alright, yeah, let's put more lands in play, baby. I don't like that card. I simply do not like that card. It's a 4/5. I'm making green mana. So, my opponent has land, creature, instant. I have sorcery beyond that. So if I nuke their graveyard, it's instant, creature, sorcery, land, still 4/5. Okay. Versus 3/4. So we can go ahead and go Bam, Malevolent Rumble, the Illusion of Choice, pick up Wasteland. I've already made my land drop. I think I am going to offer the trade of Shifting Ceratops for it, and then hope to Endurance their graveyard afterwards. A Molten Collapse style card that can get rid of this is a really big deal. Opponent does not like my Wasteland. Oh! That also hits the carpet. I think that's GG. That Goyf is now a 5/6. We have found a card that my deck does not beat. And Dismember is not cutting it against this thing. It's just getting out of range of that. My opponent's going to get a DRC off of that as well that is castable. Yeah, I am confident that that is the loss for me. We cannot beat the Goyf. GG. Alright, my opponent has revealed a Yorion Companion. My hand is very strange. I could Trinisphere on turn 1, in which case I don't actually have anything left to do with the mana afterwards. If this is a Death and Taxes style deck, just leading on Trinisphere isn't that great. The Yorion decks don't tend to be combo decks. They tend to be control decks or creature-oriented decks. I don't even know if this hand is a keep, honestly. It can do something powerful, but I don't think it's going to win whatever matchup this is. I'm going to mulligan that. This is fine. We can keep this and not keep the Chrome Mox. Keeping the Chrome Mox just means that I go down another card. We can just go land, Ignoble Hierarch, and then play Sowing Mycospawn on turn 2. Hopefully my opponent is playing non-basic lands. We do not want to see basic planes here. Yes! Well, so there's 3 and 4 for Sowing Mycospawn. We'll pick up a Wasteland, we'll pass the turn, and we'll Wasteland Valk in upkeep. We do this just on the off chance that my opponent has some sort of stifle effect that can stop it. We want to use the mana on their turn, not just the mana on my own turn. And if my opponent is playing, something like a 4 or 5 color control deck, then hopefully we just take out their first 3 lands and just win the game. Oh, that is getting a tropical island with Wasteland already in play. That's not going to feel great. Sure, let's try to punch for 4 here. I guess I could Wasteland pre-combat to better play around Swords to Plowshares. Like I can push 1 more point of damage if I don't hardcast a Spirit Guide, which is actually something that I might do. So let's Wasteland that Tundra. I could have done this in combat still to play slightly tighter. Thinking about it more, I think I like casting a Spirit Guide more than I like pushing 1 point of damage immediately. The Spirit Guide just means that I am attacking for 3 for my next turn rather than 1. There's a Misty, my opponent is fetching with it. Now they get a basic island. And Ponder. That's a shuffle. Malevolent Rumble. I am into that over casting a Spirit Guide here, I think. I'll take a Shifting Ceratops, absolutely. So I have 1, 2, 3 mana towards that, so that's not happening this turn. I will just get in there for 3. Opponent's at 16. Opponent is fetching. They potentially have a basic forest here. It is Beans. That's fine. Solitude's great here. Oh, that's also very good. I think that's better than casting Shifting Ceratops and attacking for 5. Let's get in there with Elvish Spirit Guide first, though. Opponent will go to 12. And then I will go ahead and drop Trinisphere. And this just makes a lot of the Solitudes and Cantrips and Force of Will type cards more awkward as this match goes on. Opponent is fetching. Oh, that's Yorion to hand. That is not really what my opponent wants to be doing right now. Do I want to Thrun? I think the immediacy of this damage matters a lot. I think the immediacy of this damage matters. I will Shifting Ceratops. I will activate its ability, giving it haste. And I will send in for 7. We are afraid of a Supreme Verdict style card. My opponent really needs to answer both of these creatures simultaneously. So I think it has to be Supreme Verdict. Thrun, notably, is only indestructible on my own turn. I think my opponent had a little bit of agency in that game. They did not choose to get Basic Island off of the initial Lorien Revealed cycle, and I did have 3 Wastelands this game. So maybe they can play this a little differently. Versus Control, I don't really know how much I have to board in. When I know what my opponent's finishers are, I can think about Dismembers and Run-a-Fowls, but I just don't know yet. There's a pretty wide variety of what my opponent could be doing. Carpet of Flowers is probably fine over a couple Ignoble Hierarchs or Chrome Moxen. I could do something like Dismember to be better versus Solitude when it is hardcast. I think I like my Trinispheres here. I think I'm going to do this and keep roughly the same mana ratios. The Ignoble Hierarchs are just a little unreliable here. This is going to be fine. Got a few different ways this could go depending on how the first few turns swing. Holy Wasteland, Batman. I think I am into Dryad Arbor this turn. That is just not a card that I want to draw later. And I don't really want to put an Undermountain Adventurer under a Chrome Mox. Like, the initiative is so strong versus Control. Am I going to eat the immediate swords? I am. Windswept Heath. That could get a basic forest. This turn's hard. I am into Chrome Mox. I think I put Thrun under, despite the fact that it is uncounterable. And we just kind of make my opponent deal with Undermountain Adventurer into Undermountain Adventurer. See how they handle that. It is basic forest. I think cycling purely to not draw that basic forest. That can be a 3rd basic. So my opponent could counterspell here. I don't think that matters. I think I just jam. It's actually more scary if my opponent plays a flash creature and then swords the Undermountain Adventurer. Dress down. Solid. So now the initiative is not in play. I just have a 3/4 creature. It is a 3/4 creature that taps for 2 mana, so like if I draw a Sowing Mycospawn, that starts to become relevant, for example. Surveil land is Wastelandable, and I would probably do so at this stage. Alright, send in. Opponent takes some damage. Guess I can use you as a mana dork. And do this. It is another dress down, so it looks like my opponent is probably on a Stifle Knot build. These 3/4 creatures are still a problem for my opponent. This Wasteland does not do a ton. I still think it is worth doing. But like, there is still 6 power in play, and my opponent gets 1 spell per turn. Yeah, that doesn't feel good. I also now have a gajillion D mana, as each one of these Undermountain Adventurers taps for 2. We're not going to complete a dungeon, but they theoretically could tap for 6 each. Real big green sun. Chrome-Mox's not what we're looking for here. I will send in for 6. Opponent goes down to 8. I will play another Trinisphere. I don't know enough about my opponent's mana base to know whether or not I could realistically double Wasteland Flooded Strand to take out fetchables. You may surveil. I will eat this land. Just another small thing. I probably should have tapped my Undermountain Adventurer to play Trinisphere. That was just literal blind terminus, right? I guess they surveilled, looked at it, and did have it. That is unfortunate, though. So my opponent is probably favored to win this game now, which is very unfortunate, because I had control of it for so long. I do not believe that I wasteland my opponent right now. I need to be able to top deck things like Shifting Ceratops and put them into play. Opponent has another land. Are we at Beans now? No, we are at Ponder. And that was no shuffle on the Ponder. This is not what we want. I again need to keep my mana sources here, but Trinisphere is not even green for Chrome-Mox. This is unfortunate. If I had more threats in the sideboard, I probably would have boarded Trinispheres out for additional threats. Seems good. Now I can't top deck something like Endurance and cast it. Sure. Ender's Lounge is fine. A Leyline Binding a Chrome-Mox. Yep. I am not sure that that is a correct thing to do, but it is a strategy. Like that is a very, very good short-term play. But my opponent's best clock right now is potentially a Yorion that comes into play 2 turns from now. And I could theoretically top deck something like Yavimaya into Shifting Ceratops that might make my opponent regret doing this play. It is very hard for me to know how good this play is without seeing their hand, and they do take up the Yorion. So there's a land. That's not worth life. I could attempt to double wasteland my opponent off of Yorion. Don't think that makes sense. The Yorion can blink the Leyline Binding and make it hit some other threat. Shifting Ceratops 5 power. It is 5 power, potentially with haste. Okay, so there is the Yorion. So I don't imprint anything here. If I did imprint something, my opponent could then exile the Chrome-Mox again. They can take out one of my Trinispheres. It's not like that really matters, though. Trinispheres aren't really doing anything anymore. I also think it is very valid for my opponent to sit there and wait on Yorion until I play a threat, although haste is a problem. I'm going to play another Trinisphere. I don't have anything else to do. I'm not interested in wastelanding my opponent. I need my own mana. I can do things with my mana, such as kicked Sowing Mycospawn in a little while. Ground Seal? I am surprised to see that in after sideboarding, but my opponent might just not have many things for this matchup. It's just a card that draws a card. Hey, it's that Sowing Mycospawn that I was talking about. I guess I can leave open a Wasteland here, huh? I'm always tapping both Ancient Tombs to do this. So I will do this with Kicker. I will take out a basic land with the Exile trigger, I think. Although it's possible I should just aggressively attack dual lands and just take out 3 different dual lands. Now, let's take out basic planes with this. Oh shit, those are all my Wastelands. I guess I'm getting a Yavimaya. Opponent has Force of Will here for the Sowing Mycospawn body itself. Pitching Force of Negation, that is acceptable to me. If I wasteland my opponent, I do notably change them from 6 mana to 5 mana. What about Green Sun? Green Sun X equals 4 with haste still happens. Yeah. I'm going to target white mana, because then I can hit Savannah next turn and potentially knock my opponent off of Swords to Plowshares style removal spells for my cards. I need to set a draw step stop on my own turn. Well, shit. Super punished for not hitting Xander's Lounge. I do not believe it was correct to do so. That's a hell of a punish. I can take 8 here. Still live to have lethal on my turn. Miss. I can get rid of Leyline Bind and get a Trinisphere back, but I'm dead on board. That's unfortunate. We had a couple of things break badly there. The random Terminus, the Minskin Boo. Multiple dress downs for my initiative triggers. Do I want to force a Vigor or dress downs? Do I want to run a foul? I think the answer to both of those is no. I'm not like the most excited about Trinisphere. My opponent may just be playing a couple of value dress downs. I said they could be Stifle Knot earlier. I think that's less likely. I didn't see any additional stuff for that in a relatively long game. All right. Okay. A little awkward. A little awkward. I don't think it goes back. It, in theory, can attempt to turn to Trinisphere. It, in theory, can Wasteland my opponent into Oblivion. My opponent doesn't know necessarily how good this Yavimaya is. And opponent is on 6, notably. Basic Plains. Is it Swords? It is Swords. That's unfortunate. That means my turn 2 is unlikely to be good. Never mind. I'm the greatest of all time. Take 2. Ancient Tomb. Trinisphere. I can get rid of this stop. I don't really need this now. Ooh. Opponent does have Uro. Thrun not being a 4-mana play is so massive here. What are you going for here? Knowing my hand, it's scarier for me if this happens. But I think from my opponent's side of the battlefield, the Ancient Tomb is likely to be scarier. Yeah, leaving me with that Ancient Tomb there would mean that Trinisphere likely would have resolved. Seems like opponent has drawn a Terminus. I'll just kind of passively keep that in mind. Beans? Beans. I think I'm just going to jam Trinisphere ASAP here. Yeah. I just want this to resolve while I don't think my opponent is likely to have another counter spell. Wow, did my opponent draw another Terminus? Brainstorm's a horrifying card then. There's a basic. More beans? Nope, not beans. Ground Seal. Alright, so whatever I want to do is resolving in this next turn. I can Endurance. That's kind of whatever. Am I Wastelanding? I don't know whether or not my opponent has that next land drop, and it's a really big deal to Wasteland if they do not have the next land drop. It matters a lot less if they do. I think I will Wasteland. Take out the Trop. I think I am just going to cast this around a counter spell, even though this gives my opponent a little bit more information. I'm fine clearing their graveyard because I know they have things like Uro in their deck. They do have the next land drop, which is notably the 3rd basic. It is another Up the Beanstalk. The opponent has great value if they can cast more expensive cards. That's one of the worst draws in my entire deck. I'm fine casting another Trinisphere here. Again, this Thrun not being a 4-drop is so bad for me. Like, if this was just another initiative creature, I resolve and I get the initiative over one of these last couple of turns. I just win the game. Opponent likes their next draw. That is a Yorion to hand. I might need to Wasteland my opponent, even though I really, really, really do not want to. Yeah, incredibly awkward. So if I do not Wasteland my opponent, they potentially just play Yorion, draw 2, while stabilizing the board. I hate this, but this is where we're at. That is a Ponder. So the Yorion is threatening to come down next turn as well. I can't Wasteland this Flooded Strand successfully. All right. The other problem here is that I suspect that my opponent has 2 copies of the card Terminus in hand. If we reach the point where 6 mana double cantrip Terminus starts happening, these cards are not getting there. Okay, it's not 5th land. It is a Swords to Plowshares. That's fine. I don't think you need to do that with that timing. Well, 2. There's Thrun. Uncounterable. Double uncounterable. Triple uncounterable. This is, in theory, hard to answer. Can't be the target of non-green spells my opponents control, as indestructible. But again, I think my opponent has Terminus in hand. So the window where this is good is very, very small. So this is going to give my opponent their next land drop, which can allow them to play Yorion and draw 2 cards. I can Wasteland them to keep them off of hardcast Terminus. Okay, and when I said cast Yorion is a draw 2, I meant draw 2 initially, not counting the blink stuff. My opponent is going to look at a very large number of cards here. Hopefully, though, the cards don't matter that much, and my opponent just dies. Troll Punch. Elvish Spirit Guide is not what I am looking for. That's what I got. My opponent should chump block with Yorion here. Wow, they're thinking about not blocking. Going to 2 here is wild to me. The difference between anything that puts them at 5 or less life so that they die to hasty Shifting Ceratops seems disastrous to me. Yeah, they're not blocking. Wild. Yeah, they're at 2. So I'm going to Wasteland a land that helps cast Supreme Verdict and Terminus. And then I am fine casting this. I don't need to pay life here. This is lethal next turn if my opponent blocks Thrun. And my opponent gets 1 spell because of double Trinisphere. There's a cycle for Volcanic Island. A Flage. Sure. So my opponent can kill my Spirit Guide and then chump block with Yorion and live to see another turn cycle. They are dead to Shifting Ceratops. Justice. Shifting Ceratops. Uncounterable. Keep this. Aced. And that's the game. We end up getting some of our play points back for this league, which honestly is pretty good considering what archetype we're playing. Alright. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Not bad for a first draft. I think it's still a little rough around the edges, but there's some good stuff going on here. Generally speaking, I don't like Thrun, and I say that realizing how good Thrun was in some of the games. I think it is just kind of crazy to be playing a 5-drop. There were so many times where Thrun was not castable or Thrun put a little bit of strain on the mana base. Like, I think if you want to be doing a deck like this, you should cap out at 4. I think the deck is very, very good at getting to 4 mana, and the 5th mana, even without City of Traders disappearing, is just a little bit sketchy. I think if you want to play Thrun, you could include it in the sideboard if you feel like your sideboard does have room for that. Generally speaking, powering out Sowing Mycospawn is really, really good, and this deck is very good at powering out Sowing Mycospawn. I guess ultimately what I'm wondering, though, is why would you play this versus, say, the red-green initiative deck that can just jam a whole bunch of initiative cards and Minsk and Boo and is just like hyper consistent at getting to 4 mana and playing something that can end the game. That's also a deck that has access to Magus of the Moon for another Oops, I Win button. So I think this deck exists in a similar space as to that deck, but is just going to be a little bumpier. We have a handful of green cards in this deck that don't necessarily line up the best with Ancient Tomb. I am very glad that I added Elvish Spirit Guide to the deck. I really felt like that card helping me play around Days and that card helping get Shifting Ceratops haste was a big deal. Malevolent Rumble was a fine bridge card. The Green Suns actually weren't that great today. There weren't all that many times where we actually Green Sunned into a threat. I think the Green Suns are necessary. I think Green Sun for Collector Oof is something that is going to give you a fighting chance versus combo in the post-sideboard games. I think your combo game in game 1 is really sketchy. I think with the metagame where it's at, you can't really cut Trinisphere. I think if the metagame was slightly different, I would be suggesting just playing more dudes, just playing more threats of some kind, and increasing the threat density. That's something that I wanted to do post-sideboard versus these control decks that I just really didn't have the option to do. So I think I'm going to give this one the shaky sideways thumbs up, where some of the details aren't quite right, but it is definitely playing Legacy. We didn't just get bodied today, despite the slightly negative score on the scoreboard at the end. And we were playing intricate games of Magic that had real decisions. You know, sometimes we were just top decking, but I think the first couple of turns with this deck were actually really interesting. And with that, I'm going to call it a day. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving me a like. And if you need some cards, consider checking out my sponsor and using promo code ThrabenU. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya!